My heart rate was good.
His heart rate was good. His heart rate was good. Another episode of Why Wells Fail. Lloyd Brown, welcome to your show.
Thank you.
So you jumped out of a plane, a perfectly good plane, as they say, and look at you. You got a little skip in your step. What's the deal?
Man, I tell you what, when you live life fully, you do things that push your boundaries. You know, I had a friend of mine, she texted me this morning. We'd been having a conversation and it was awesome. She said, and I think this would be really good for us today from a conversation, but she said, the feeling of regret is heavier than the fear you feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot to that.
Totally. It's, if you push yourself, it's scary. You're uncomfortable. You're going into an area that you haven't been before, but you stick around in the same old, you start to dwell. Later, you dwell on why didn't you do that? Why were you so scared about it? So I think that's good. And that segues into what we're going to talk about today, because oftentimes you kind of stick to your own. Our topic today is about misdiagnosis. And sometimes you just stick with what's known in place of maybe exploring an option that you weren't aware of until now. And so, one time I had this car and it was making this noise when I was driving. So I go into the oil change place and turn it off, and they're changing the oil, and I go, hey, do you know what this noise is that my engine's making? And so they turned it on, and it was doing this noise, and the guy says, well, I don't know, it may be a bearing or something. So later I sold that car. I've been driving it. It's like your air conditioner is going to go out. I think that's what he said. So I drove it all summer, never turned my air conditioner on because I didn't want it to break. I didn't have the money to repair it. I sell the car to a friend. I told her that it's got this wrong with it. And so maybe like a couple of weeks later, I asked her, how's it going with the car? She goes, oh, it's great. I took it to the car repair, and it was just a loose radiator belt. And I spent the whole summer sweating. And the diagnosis that I had was something bad when it wasn't. And so these operators, they're diagnosing certain issues, down there. And why not get a professional opinion? And why not talk to Lloyd?
Well, it's, Steve, we start talking about costs. We start looking at the cost of failure and the cost of making a bad decision. And, today, so many times, and I was interviewing a young guy just recently about coming to work with us, and he's had a bunch of production experience working in the production chemical area. And he's like, why should I come to work with Refine? And I said, all the days you get called out to work battle, to come inspect a tubing failure and to diagnose what caused that well to fail. Well, by following our process, you don't have to do that anymore. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, if we complete a well, we understand what the mechanisms of failure are. We're going to provide a well to the operator that doesn't have any emulsions. So you're not going to have to work any bad oil. We're going to provide to you a well that doesn't have scale or corrosion on the tubulars. And if it does, we're going to predict it so you can mitigate it before it ever happens. And we're also going to provide you with no bacteria in the well. It's going to be a bug-free well. All of these things are guaranteed as part of our process. And he's like, well, doesn't that impact how much chemical you sell on the production side? And I said, yeah, you sell a lot less. And that's why I'm in the completion side, because you're fighting against yourself if you do both sides, right? Because if you prevent the problems, you don't have to sell prescriptions. But if you provide the prescription up front and you deliver a healthy well, like a healthy baby, children, moms take folic acid and all these different, supplements to make sure that they eat healthy. They do all these things. Well, it's the same thing. We want to provide the right prescriptive to give the well all the benefits and the opportunities to be healthy when we bring it online. And the misdiagnosing, so many times you're looking for reasons. For years, everybody's like, why do we have bacteria? The bacteria are coming from the geology. We've awoken these. And no, everybody kept looking at them. We don't have any in the water, and it's hiding right in front of them. It's in the sand. And they were doing a surface treatment, but they weren't providing the protection for something that was in a spore living in the sand and coming alive when it's in an anaerobic environment. And then you start getting these bug counts, you start seeing all of these things, and you have to come back and you have to retreat the well, and you have something that is forever encumbered with bacteria. Same thing is as we look at the geology, if it's got high amounts of pyrite and we liberate that pyrite, that well from this point forward will generate H2S naturally because the pyrite's degrading as the well produces over time. Same thing with carbonates and their destruction producing CO2. And so, understanding all these mechanisms of failure up front keep us from having to do the acid jobs to get rid of the iron sulfide, the chemical treatments, the continuation. And that's where the misdiagnosis is. There's a belief that you can't prevent these issues. And we've proven that you can. And the bonus is by doing the prevention, you make more oil, you make more gas over the whole life of the well. And so it's that's the challenge with misdiagnosis. We're treating the problem rather than the cause. And, that's kind of the human experience, right? It takes somebody being sick and tired of being sick and tired to go, all right, what are we doing here that's causing this? Instead of just accepting it, that it's okay. And that's what happens.
I think one of the big things about the refined process is not just you're getting a hell wealthy,
Mm-hmm.
well, you're getting a well healthy, but you're protecting the reputation of the company that you're working with. Yeah, you're going to have issues. Yeah, you might have to do it. Let's say you birth the well and then you got to do an acid job or you got to do a quick workover or something like that. But there's a reputation at stake of the person that chose that vendor. And now they're working an issue instead of running a healthy well. And that's the bigger solution that this diagnosis helps you prevent.
That's correct. And you think about the capital resources, and the number one resource is time. And when a well goes down, and you are having to work it over, you've lost that amount of production forever. And there's folks that go, oh, it's still down there, it's going to come back. Well, you've lost that day. You don't make any more days in the year. And the other side is there's always a step change when that well gets shut in, especially when it's in disruption. It's continuing, that law of equilibrium still going, and it's declining. And so you go and bring the well back on. You may get a flush production, but the actual decline curve has actually taken a step change and gone lower. And so now the predictive amount of hydrocarbon that you're going to get goes down, not up. And so there's just so many different challenges that if you don't, prevention is worth what?
2 pounds.
Whatever it is of cure, right? It's in this case, and you're much more capital effective and efficient to prevent it than you are to have a chronically disabled well.
The cost of that step decline over a long period of time is significant.
Oh, you probably really don't want to know the numbers. I mean, as an operator, you just figure you get a 5% step change, and you have an asset that's producing $10,000 a day. What's 5% of 10,000? It's a number. And you do that for 365 days. And then you multiply that times how many ever years this well is going to produce. It's a massive amount of lost revenue. And that's being extremely capital inefficient. That's impacting your ROI.
Mm-hmm. So this diagnosis process, this plan, I think about, I thought it was kind of, I played football and they have a plan for the game. And I was going like, we're going to go out there and things are going to go wrong. Why would you waste all this time on a plan? A game plan, but it's significant. And it's a system of the winners,
mm-hmm.
the perennial winners. So this plan that you guys put together, let's talk about it.
Well, it's knowing what your resource is, which right on the front is getting the drill cuttings and being able to do the upfront work on the well, understanding what your water resource is that's going to frack the well, and then what are the processes of that well degrading that negatively impact, number one, the oil production, but then number two, the ability for it to stay online over a longer period of time, producing oil and gas without those shut-ins and step changes that happen. And so that's step number one. And then it's to predict what's going to happen if you don't do anything, or if you continue to do the same bad process. Because one of the things, not understanding those mechanisms, you may think that, hey, I'm going to enhance the production of this well by adding this mouse milk, whatever it does, but not knowing that actually exacerbates the degradation of the geology. You think it's helping because it looks like it's helping in the laboratory, but the laboratory is not a predictor of what's going to happen downhole most of the time, because we're not replicating the conditions that we're experiencing downhole, and we're not founding it based on the law of equilibrium, which there's 3 things that impact that. Number 1 is time, number 2 is pressure, and number 3 is temperature. And so you take those compounding factors along with the frac fluid and going into a place, that disruption, and having the protocols to understand what that disruption looks like so you can prevent it. You can provide a preventative, prescriptive treatment. It also gives you the ability to then come back and also predict how much hydrocarbon you're going to make, what it's going to look like, the qualities, the characteristics of that hydrocarbon, how much water is going to be produced back as well. The types of gas, is it really rich gas or is it really lean gas? All of these different components we are able to predict, in addition to prevent that degradation and maximize the return on the well. And then guess what? When you're healthy, do you go to the doctor? That's the whole thing. And the doctor in this case is calling your production chemical specialist to come out and sell your oil because you got an emulsion and you can't understand why it's there. Or you've got a corrosion failure, you've got a scaling problem, or D, you got all the above. and you're producing the gas off of your well, and the pipeline company's coming in and they're giving you a bill for the amount of H2S and CO2 you're producing. All of those things are preventative. We can prevent those by completing the well the right way. And that equals net dollars. It gives you the ability of lowering an operating cost on a well. I've seen some companies that have lease operating expenses running $6 and $7 a barrel. So think about this, Steve. You get paid $60 a barrel. Because of the way the royalty matrix is set up, you're only going to get 75 cents of that because the royalty owners get the other 25 cents. So now you've gone from 60 to what? 45. And then you have all of your operating costs that are coming in there. Let's call it $8, $7, $8, $9 a barrel. And then you have to pay for all of your overhead, everything that there is. Well, in today's practice, most companies need somewhere between over $60 a barrel to break even. But if we can help them have a lower operating expense, let's say we can cut that in half or even more over the life of the well, now we've made their break-even change.
Wow.
So you're less susceptible to the fluctuations in commodity pricing. But some of it, we've got some baked in cost, and this is where, the tariffs on our metal goods, you're seeing a huge, an increase of up to 25% for our operators, our partners that are going out there and putting these assets out. They're having to pay more for the metal goods that are going to go produce this oil and gas. So they become even that much more important to protect up front, because it's going to extend out how long it takes us to get the return on the capital. So, a $10 million well, and you take all of these compounding costs, now it costs you $12,500,000. Now I'm putting all of that on the metal goods, and that's not the case, but it's still, that's the kind of amplification that we see across all of the impacts of those costs. And so, it's ultimately the additional costs that you look over in the life of a well. If a well produced, let's say, 10 million barrels over its life, and we're able to mitigate $3 per barrel of that cost over its life, it's a number.
Significant.
The converse is, what if we're doing practices that take that from something that should be $3 a barrel and now it's $9? Now you have $90 million of additional cost that you shouldn't have had, or $60 million if you take the delta. And so that's the kind of thinking that we bring to the table with our partners. Is we're not only thinking about, hey, we just want to sell you some chemical. No, we're thinking about, hey, how do we help you maximize the return that you get for the risk capital you've deployed and the promise that you've made your investors? How do we make sure that we help you keep your reputation? You keep bringing that up in our conversations. That's what we see part of our role is to help protect their reputations to the people that have entrusted them with their capital to bring a return.
And all the time you've been in this industry, have you seen a time like now that all the pressures on this cost per barrel, has it ever been worse? Or
oh, it's been a lot worse. When I got into the industry in 1987, that was we thought the crash of all crashes, and oil was $8 a barrel, and natural gas was 60 cents. I mean, it was brutal. And I that was a gift today for me, because that we had to squeeze every cost that we could out of producing a barrel of oil for our customers. And so we were always looking at the total cost of operation. What is the total cost? What's the controllable cost? And how can we drive those down? And that, because I grew up in that environment, it has given me the ability to focus on that even when times are really good, because again, we live in a very volatile commodity market. And, you know, the stability we've had the last really 4.5 years is not normal.
When I was just thinking about the conversation before we find the predictive process existed. If you compare and contrast the conversations you're having with these operators, what's that look like now?
It used to be product focused. We've got a product for you that's going to help protect your well. And we focused on a few of the factors, not the entirety of the well.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're focused on talking about the foundational laws that we're basing the science behind, the process. And so we're hyper process focused. And it's funny, so many people want to take us to the product. Well, what's the solution? What's the product? What's it do? And that's a kind of we're learning that there's a balance between the two. There's always a balance of the benefit and needing to get there in a hurry. And our process is really about, let's take our time, and we've got the time to do it while the wells are being drilled. We gather the samples and we come up and we have that prescriptive recommendation, which involves chemistry. It also involves other recommendations to do to maximize that return. So that's the difference. It used to be product first, product forward. You got to have this product. This product does it all. These products do it together. These products, it's all about, but no, this process is about their well. It's about how do we provide them something that they can rest assured they're going to get the rate of return that they're looking for and have manageable costs over the life of the well. That's the difference.
It's kind of like there's a dynamic equilibrium now in the process that you're doing, right? From product to the process, a predictive process.
We lived in disruption. It's really the other way. We went from being constantly in disruption, and we were trying to disrupt somebody else's product in the process. You know, today we're like, well, let's not talk about product. We don't know what product you need. We don't know what that solution is. We need to see what the mechanisms that are causing all these failures that you're having to go back and say, what happened? Why are we producing this H2S or CO2, or we have these bacterial emulsions and our wells are failing and we're losing revenue. Our operating expenses are going up. Let's prevent that. It's now the conversation about, here's what we're going to prevent. And this is how we do it. And by the way, this is the sound science. Because you really think about it, our product is the process. It's not a chemical or a chemistry, even though those are involved in the process. The process is what we have.
Yeah. A lot of data, a lot of experience. 1987 is a long time ago, but you've done your reps, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that season of really low commodity pricing, for the most part, lasted all the way into the late 90s until we started seeing the hydraulic fracking, and we saw some real changes in the value around natural gas. But yeah, it was a great training ground. I'm grateful for that time.
Mm-hmm. All right. So if someone's been listening, they're intrigued, they want to talk to you about the refined way. What's the best way to go about that, Lloyd?
Lloyd.Brown at refinedcompletions.com, or through these channels. And on our website, there's places for them to say, contact me. So love to hear from folks.
Yeah, so let's don't misdiagnose. Let's get a real clear picture, get a plan, Follow a process.
That's right.
All right, Lloyd, great episode.
Thank you, Steve.
Misdiagnosis on why wells fail. We'll see you guys next week at the same time. And that's a wrap.